Hey, everybody. Larry Bailey here, bringing you another weekly newsletter. Today is July 1st. Happy July. Can you believe 2024 is half over? I don't know about you, but I still have a lot of work to do. And these markets are not necessarily helping us in any way, shape, or form unless we know what's happened and we can make some best decisions from there. So let's get into last week's review. Just before we do, though, remember this information is brought to you from MBS Highway. Get over to mbshighway.com and head over to awesometechinc.com if you run a business and you have any type of person who earns commissions or bonuses, or if you want to actually track your expenses directly into your accounting platform, and then also integrate your expenses into your payroll as non-taxable payroll reimbursements. Check out eCompensate. You can get over to awesometechinc.com and find out all the information about eCompensate, and you really will not be disappointed. You probably will be surprised on how easily affordable it is and how impactful it can be to your business, especially when it comes time to making sure people are paid properly, especially if you're doing things like draws. So let's get into this week of June 24th in review. Both inflation and home sales move lower. Meanwhile, home prices hit another all-time high. Here we go into these stories. The first story is inflation cools in May. The next story is new home sales slip. The next story is pending home sales continue lower. The next story is home price gains remain strong. Into the next story, which is first quarter only slightly higher than initially reported. And the last story for the day is initial jobless claims decline, but still remain elevated. Now, if you're listening to me on podcast, thank you very much. If you'd like to actually watch this on screen and you can watch the entire video, head over to mortgage.community and you can check out everything that's on screen as we go through it. And then you'll also get to check out the recipe for the family hack of the week, which we will get to soon. So the first story is inflation cools in May, and we have a nice image on here that gives us the wonderful personal consumption expenditures graph, really from I guess that's the last 12 months, running from last June through current May. And you can see this trend line that's actually going down. It's a little bumpy, as it should be, but it is getting better, quote unquote, air quotes here. So while May's personal consumption expenditures, that's the PCE, showed that the headline inflation was unchanged from April, the year-over-year reading declined from 2.7% to 2.6%. The core PCE, the Fed's preferred method, which strips out volatile food and energy prices, that rose by less than 1.1% monthly, The year-over-year reading declined from 2.8 to 2.6%, which is an encouraging drop because this is the Fed's mandate, one of them, of stable prices. The bottom line here in this story is the Fed has been working hard to tame inflation, hiking its benchmark Fed funds rate. As a reminder, that's the overnight borrowing rate for banks to the Fed. 11 times they hiked that, really, between March 2022 and July 2023. These hikes were designed to slow the economy by making borrowing more expensive and lowering the demand for goods, so pricing pressure and inflation would shrink or get less. The Fed has held rates steady since last September because inflation had been making good progress lower late last year before stalling in the first quarter of this year. And while the Fed members have emphasized that they do not expect to cut rates until they're confident that inflation is moving sustainably towards their 2% target, which is, by the way, is measured by the annual core PCE. That's that one that, again, earlier in the story dropped from 2.7 to 2.6. May's tamer inflation readings are a welcome sign along that trend line. So we'll see what happens. Here we go into the next story, and this one's all about new home sales slip. And we see an image on here gives us everything between signed contracts and the months of housing supply. And this information is brought to you from the U.S. Census Bureau and HUD. That's Housing and Urban Development, if you don't know what HUD is. So new home sales, which measures signed contracts of new homes, fell 11.3% from April to May, significantly missing forecasts that were expecting a rise. Signed contracts were also lower 16.5% than they were in May of last year. Interesting. So despite the pullback in sales, demand for new construction remains strong due to the persistent shortage of existing homes for sale. On that note, more, quote, available supply is needed to meet buyer demand. While there were 481,000 new homes available for sale at the end of May, which is slightly higher than the 474,000 seen in the previous report. Only 99,000 of those 481 were actually completed, with the rest either under construction or not even started yet. So it's also important to note that the median home price fell 0.1% from April, but this was not due to falling home prices. Keep in mind that median means just the middle, and so the home prices actually continue to rise nationwide per the Case-Shiller and other appreciation indexes, as noted below in the next story here. The median home price, remember, that represents the mid price of sales, meaning it's influenced by the mix of sales in any given month. Builders are constructing smaller, more affordable homes to meet buyer demand, and that actually pushed that median home price slightly lower, comparatively speaking, of course. So we're getting to the next story here, and this is the pending home sales continue lower. So we have the National Association of Realtors, the NAR, brought us some data here, and we can see the differences between the 2021 average, 22, 23, and as of May of 24 average index. So the pending home sales fell 2.1% from April to May per the National Association of Realtors. That's the NAR. They're coming in well below estimates of a 2.5% rise, following a 7.5% decline seen from March to April. Sales were also 6.6% lower than they were a year earlier. This report measures signed contracts on existing homes, making it an important forward-looking indicator for closings on these homes as measured in the existing home sales report. So the bottom line here is the pending home sales index took another turn lower in April as after a significant drop in March. That's 2 months, one after the other. NAR's chief economist Lawrence Young explaining, quote, "The first half of the year did not meet expectations regarding home sales, but exceeded expectations related to home prices. In the second half of 2024, look for moderately lower mortgage rates, higher home sales, and stabilized home prices," close quote. We'll see, Lawrence. I don't know, man. That's a lot to unpack there. So Lawrence believes that we're going to see lower mortgage rates, which may or may not happen. If you're watching up here, mortgage rates actually got more expensive from Friday into today. So the cost of money for mortgages, at least, will be a little bit higher today. And the 10-year bond, actually, that yield increased. So naturally, these things go up and down. Again, I've been lending since I've been in mortgage banking since 93. Really, first 20 years was strictly in retail sales. I always tell people, grab the money when you need it, right? You really can't wait for money to become cheaper. That is a bad bet. You might get lucky, but more often, way more often, you will lose money. So having said all that, we'll see what Lawrence's expectations here for 2024, see if they come true. Lawrence, I hope you're right, buddy. I hope you're right. All right, here we go into the next story. Home price gains remain strong. And so the Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which is considered the, quote, gold standard for appreciation, showed home prices nationwide rose 0.3% from March to April after a seasonal adjustment. I have no idea what a seasonal adjustment means. I still have yet to have anybody explain that to me. I'm sure it's somewhere in Google land, but maybe one day I'll look that up. Home values in April were also 6.3% higher than a year earlier, following 6.5% gain in March. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, that's the FHFA, their house price index also reported a 0.2% jump in home prices from March to April, with prices 6.3% higher than the previous year. It's important to note that the FHFA does not include cash buyers because cash buyers don't use financing. It also doesn't include loans that exceed the FHFA's limits for those states and those counties. And so because of that those kinds of housing transactions don't go into this home price index calculation, but it would be included in Case-Shiller. So on screen, you've got this image here between the Case-Shiller month over month and year over year. So you can see it's all pluses, plus, like everywhere. It's crazy. The bottom line here is, gang, for the second consecutive month, we've seen our national index jump at least 1% over its previous all-time high. That was a quote, as confirmed by S&P DJI's head of commodities, Brian D. Luke. These indexes show that the home ownership remains a fantastic opportunity for families to create wealth. I'm telling you, like, I looked at my personal commentary here. I looked at my 401k that I haven't touched in, I don't know, 2 years. And I just saw, I'm like, hey, your personal return is 8.7%. I'm like, what? Like, how does that happen? The home that I bought, I don't know, what is it, 5 years ago now, is literally up 100% over what I bought it at. And I mean, I've done work to it, but I haven't done 100% of work to it. Like, that's just crazy. So bottom line is, if you can get into a house and you can find a home that you can afford, please get with somebody to help you get that mortgage to get in that house. And if for whatever reason you can't find that person, or you feel like you don't know, you have questions about home financing, those kinds of things, just email me. You can use larry@atihelps.com. I've been helping people with mortgages literally for over 30 years. It's not rocket science, but you do have to know what the heck you're doing. And unfortunately, there are plenty of people out there who just kind of got in on the refinance boom. They really don't understand the long play of how to actually create home ownership and affordability options. I do. And so coincidentally, by the way, I'll be making more announcements about this later, but yeah, I'm taking steps to actually create a home ownership path. Basically, it's going to be Credit Plan HQ. There's no website yet, but that's really I'm taking steps with some partners to create a home ownership education and credit education plan, making sure people are ready for home ownership, because you have to get involved with real estate. And renting works for a lot of folks. Don't get me wrong. Renting works for a lot of folks. But it also, if you can find a home that you can afford, it actually, in a lot of cases, creates wealth right under your feet. So you can keep moving up that ladder, whatever that ladder is for you, to create wealth for yourself or even for your family. All right, let's get back to these stories. Next story is first quarter only slightly higher than initially reported. So the U.S. economy grew more slowly than previously thought during the first quarter. Oh, so this is the final. Right? So remember that when it comes out to GDP, there's three reports: there's the initial, modified, and final. This is all about the final. So, so the Bureau of Economic Analysis does their final reading for the GDP, and for that period showed a 1.4% growth. While this was above the 1.3% pace in the second estimate, it's ultimately lower than the 1.6% pace of the first estimate. And this is well below the 3.4% growth seen in the fourth quarter of 2023. Bottom line here is this is actually good. GDP functions as a scorecard for the country's economic health, so signs of a slowdown are a concern. I say it's good because I'm looking for lower interest rates. He's saying, the story's saying it's bad because the GDP slows. And as a reminder, the U.S. economy runs the world, point blank. So any deceleration in our GDP is going to ripple. It's going to create a butterfly effect for literally the entire world. So the story goes on to say the deceleration in GDP for the first quarter of 2024 can be attributed to declines in consumer spending, exports, and the state and local government spending. Well, again, the Fed's mandate was to try to slow down spending. So if we slow down spending, great job, Fed. You did your thing. Here's the next story. The initial jobless claims declined but still remain elevated. So initial jobless claims fell by 6,000 in the latest week, with 233,000 people filing new unemployment claims. There were also 1.839 million people still receiving benefits after filing their initial claim, as continuing claims increased by 18,000. Bottom line here for this story is initial jobless claims followed 3 straight weeks of increases with a modest decline of 6,000. Continuing claims are also still trending near some of the hottest levels we've seen in recent years, suggesting that the pace of hiring has slowed. The Fed will closely be watching for any rising trends of unemployment claims as they weigh monetary policy and the timing for rate cuts. Remember, they have 2 mandates in this universe. 1 is price stability, 2 is maximum employment. So we'll see what that is. Hey, listen, if you're listening on podcast, there is another reason to get over to mortgage.community to check out the Family Hack of the Week. July 4th is this week, right? So if you celebrate July 4th, there are some red, white, and blue ice pops here that you can enjoy on July 4th. These are from the Food Network. And get over here to mortgage.community and you can check out right here around the 14-minute, 30-second mark for this recipe and check it out. And that brings us to what we're going to look for this week. We'll see more appreciation data from CoreLogic on Tuesday, and then labor sector news will dominate the headlines. Look for upcoming job openings That's the JOLTS report Tuesday, private payrolls and unemployment claims Wednesday, and non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate on Friday. Remember, the markets will close early on Wednesday, and they'll be closed all day Thursday in celebration of our nation's birthday on July 4th. And as always, please be mindful of your pets, be mindful of your neighbor's pets. I know fireworks are awesome, but these things rattle the pets and wildlife, and just be mindful. If you're out there driving, please drive safely. And if you're out there doing other things that might impair your ability to drive safely, please get somebody else to drive. Take an Uber, take a Lyft, or just settle in for the night and enjoy wherever you're going to be. My name's Larry Bailey, and I always appreciate you guys paying attention to what we're doing here. That was the read-through for the week of June 24, 2024 in review. And you can always check this out on mortgage.community. And like I said earlier, if you're ever out there looking for a mortgage, you're looking for just straight information about financing, I give it to you straight, and I'll tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. You can reach me using Larry at atihelps.com. We'll see you guys.